All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wilson. I'm Rich Keicher. I am a couple of things. I'm a Google trainer, and I am the Director of Online Learning at Palisades School District. This is my man,
Chris McCaffrey,
who you've met already this morning. And we're going to do our best to talk to you about PD, curriculum, some of the things we did here at Wilson, some of the strategies we're trying to deploy in the Google EDU community, and what all this looks like as a global solution for schools in 2014. I think it's important for us to share a couple of things. You know, this presentation here is available for you. So all this will be takeaways, and we'll continue the conversation around that. But this is not meant to be a delivery. This is meant to be a conversation, right? So throughout this whole sharing, we'll be calling on you. We'll be asking you to contribute. Please ask questions, stop us. I like to be interrupted during presentations because it means you're engaged and you're getting what you need.
I'm going to interrupt you there then. These are now published to the public. We didn't have them shared, so you should be able to see them. So it is embedded on the Google site underneath presentations. At the bottom is our discussion about it. So all the links there will put you out there and you can talk about it together. In fact,
cool. So from there, you can find Chris and I on Google Plus and a couple other places. We're going to talk about this Chromebook classroom. I mean, unless you've been under a rock for the last 18 months, you've probably heard about what Chromebooks are doing across the United States, right? And what's happening right now. Every day there's a new publication about how they're cutting costs, how they're providing, you know, a stable platform for schools that want to use them for PARCC assessments and Common Core and Smart Balance, all these assessments. But the bigger win here for us, at least for Chris and I think I can speak for both of us on this, is that they're kind of changing the way we finally hit this tipping point, right? We've reached this point where instruction can change, learning can change, give kids autonomy, and all these glorious things that we know are wonderful for classroom instruction and for our schools and for our students. Put this up. I was joking with Chris yesterday. Although we're going to talk about Chromebooks, the goal of everything Google EDU, Google Chromebooks, is to get the hardware out of the way. Make the hardware both on the user side and the technician side invisible. That's why they turn on in less than 10 seconds. That's why you open it up and it's all kind of anti-climatic, because you just kind of look at it like, oh, it looks like a browser. It looks like I've seen this before. That is the goal. The centralized management on the back end, so that you can deploy apps and extensions from the Chrome Web Store, control everything centrally, geolocation with some pieces so you can find these wherever they are. All those things are getting us where we need to be. This represents a sampling of the devices at the Keicher house, right? And notice right there in the middle, so maybe it's a divorce for me someday, but my wife is a big Apple fan, right? So she's iPhone and everything, and iPad, my kids have iPads. They're outstanding devices. No one can argue that the iPad didn't change education, didn't change the world, really, in the shape, the form factor, the way that you use a slate-type device. All of these devices that you see here, I can get to Chrome on. So whether I'm using a PC or Linux or I'm using a Mac, they're all great solutions, but they all get me to Chrome. So the experience from Google Apps for Education to the Chrome experience to the Chromebook experience transfers almost seamlessly across any device. It's one of the biggest advantages for our schools. If we have students coming in and using a Chromebook here at Wilson, they can go home and duplicate that experience, get to their drive, maximize optimize the experience using Chrome on a home PC, Mac, whatever it may be. Although we're going to talk about Chromebooks as a utilitarian device, what we really want to talk about is this idea that for a school to be successful, you need to think about being platform agnostic first. Google Apps will take you from the productivity and to the inquiry and using the Chrome Web Store and engaging with all these solutions. What we really want to do is open up the web as a classroom for our students, whether it's at school, on a mobile device, or on a PC in their house, right? I still use a PC every day. I don't use my Chromebook exclusively. So I think that's important for us to start there. Do you agree or disagree? Is that an agree or I hate you, Rich? No takers? Anybody want to comment on the idea of platform agnostic? Does everybody understand what I mean by that? Good. Yep. This one here?
Absolutely.
That's all you got? Because you thought I could just use a computer.
Welcome to Wilson. It looks good. We can turn the lights down.
Chris, talk to yourself.
If you'd like to, there is a today's meet, Wilson PD. I'll pop that up on my MacBook over here on my Android.
I'm big on this idea of like perseverance is good for kids, but nasty, like some doesn't do something. If you don't get it the first time, get mad and then make it work the next time. So I'll be here all day, just so you know.
Don't worry about it, Rich. I'll turn off the light. You need a ladder to get up there. So this is a chance that you can join a back channel. Thank you. Perfect. I can't wait till Cricket sees that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you.
So if you join that today's meet, when you click on it, obviously you just put your name in and we can have a back channel going on. So if you have some thoughts or some ideas to share with the group, you can do that too as well.
So I mentioned this idea of, the web as a window of knowledge, right? Some of you may have seen this before. And if you have, I'm sure you'll enjoy it like me. I enjoy it every time I see it. So we'll just play this and talk about it afterwards. What's that have to do with education? No takers, be brave. Take a shot.
How much information
How much information kids have access to. We'll share a slide a little later to tell you exactly how much information there is in the world here. Good point. Yep.
How they drive their own path.
How they can drive their own path, right? How if they're enabled learners with autonomy that they can do anything with the information that's at their fingertips. The speed at which they can get it, instant on, instant off, whenever you need it. I talk a lot about the idea of Google as an ecosystem. That when you move to Google Apps, sometimes people think of Google Apps as docs and spreadsheets and presentations, and it is. It's all those things. But it's all that, too. Your students have access to Google Maps so that they can do watershed projects, and they have access to Chrome experiments, like Chris was mentioning earlier, so they can, use things like Zygo bodies to explore the human body in 3D in this 3D Atlas tool. They have Blogger, and they have Google Sites for e-portfolios. It's a complete ecosystem that gets turned on for their learning. And when we'll talk about this idea of access and inquiry, but when you have these things that come together, when you open these things up, and in K-12 it's free, so why not? When you open these things up, it provides the right conditions for learning to happen. It provides the right conditions for great things to happen.
I just want to stop Rich there on that free part. And I always drive this home to our teachers too as well. It isn't free. It isn't. You're giving up your data. Now Google asks for education, they do not sell your student data, they don't data mine it, that's part of it. But what Google wants to do, Stephen in the room? No, Stephen's not here. What they want to do is get the kids using their tools so when they leave, they start using the tools. The same thing iPads and Apple wants to do. They want kids using their devices in school, so when they leave school, they buy their devices. So Google wants to get kids using their services, wants to make it engaging and useful so that they get hooked on them, because I tell you what, I'm so much more efficient in my world now that I'm a total Google, that's where I do my work at and work with guys like Rich. Rich and I put this presentation together in 20 minutes, and probably half of that was just cracking jokes to each other. Because we're both so quick
On a Google Hangout.
On a Google Hangout while we're doing that. And that's where we want to get our kids to. But we have to remember that Google wants, they want to do good. They're all about education and helping the world and do that. But they need their data because they can sell advertisements and make money. We have to remember that too as well. But my point is to the teachers, we have to help our students understand that. And the fact that we do create a digital footprint, and that digital footprint is important. So we have to be careful when we do say free, because our students don't understand it. So.
No, it's a good point, but like you said though, it's also, so I get drilled on this constantly, right? Well, they're taking my students' data. No, they are not taking your data. What is the trade-off? Like Chris said, the trade-off is Google gets Google users. They get kids doing Google searches at home, absolutely. But the data and the student information is not used to advertise to any student, any user on that app's domain. Absolutely not, and Stephen can verify that too. I get that question at least 3 times a week. Any questions on any of that? Okay. So why Chromebooks? We touched on some of these things already, but let's just go to the next slide. I want to talk about the next piece there. So why Chromebooks? I touched on this idea of a tipping point, and Chris started to talk about the power of the crowd and using the web for professional development and for networking and just getting ideas. I went to Google Plus, I think, a couple weeks ago, and said, what was your driving decision? What were the factors that made you decide that Chromebooks were the right decision? And here were some of the answers. The ones in bold at the top were the bigger ones, and what people were doing with them, and what was coming. Phil Vidagranoff, I don't think he's in this session this morning, had a great comment to me. He says, I'm tired of it talking about the why. We're past the why. Why do we need 1-to-1 or BYOD or connected learning? We're past that. When you're Washington now talking about connect ed and getting every school, 99% of schools with broadband access over the next 5 years. We talk about kids connecting in different ways. We talk about experiences and what I like to call sometimes immersive experiences, moving online to develop these flexible competencies. For all these reasons, we're here. We've reached the tipping point now. At this point, we're just looking at excuses to not provide this product. We can't afford it. We can't do this. No, you can. You can. Everybody does. Nobody can afford it. We can't afford anything in public ed anymore. But there are ways to do these solutions, from BYOD to 1-to-1. You're doing all the purchases yourself. A lot of different options to do this, and we can share more about what they did here, and even some others in the audience that maybe are doing BYOD.
All right, again, we don't want to make this too long. We want to talk and field your questions, so I'll try to move through my part as quickly as possible. Yeah. I went through an online thing about Lodi, becoming an official trainer for Lodi or what have you. It stands for levels of technology implementation and actually changing levels of teaching innovation. So that's an older graphic down there below. This is something that I use to create really deep conversations about technology, effective technology integration in the classroom. It's called Lodi. It's off our 1-to-1 set. I'll show you where you can get to it as well. But basically allows me to gauge a classroom activity, a lesson, and have a conversation, like I said, with the teacher. So we use this to first kind of give our digital ageness of our teachers and where they are. So we could go in and differentiate for this teacher versus another one according to the National Education Technology Standards for teachers. So this is mapped to those standards. That gave us an overshot, and I'm going to show you what our overshot was, because then it shows you a high school faculty composite digital age survey study. So this gave us an overview of where our faculty was. And I'll explain the heat model and all this other stuff in a minute. So this was actually our results from last spring before we were moving into this. And we were excited. We were like, look at that, we scored real good. Look at all those bars are big. But the problem is it says high level priority. This is a need. We need to do this. So we look back and it said student learning and creativity. These are all mapped back to the National Education Technology Standards for Teachers. And it basically showed us that, we're doing pretty good with working with technology, managing email, using presentations, and with teacher stuff, basically. Using some assessments, professional growth, leadership. We still have some work to do, but this one is the one that stood out for us. And for me, that's bad, because we need to pass tests. Okay? Let's teach beyond that, then, because I know work with people who get great test scores and they don't teach good tests. They don't stop their curriculum now for the PSSA to prepare their kids. They teach above the test. And that's tough for principals to make that leap, especially in Wilson School District, where we're at 97, I think. They just adjusted our scores here at the high school for our school profile. For a principal to say, hey, this is what we're doing, we're already at 97, what are you telling me you want to change the way my teachers are teaching? So George talked about that, Dr. Gerhardt talked about that. So what we did then is dig down into this digital age survey that Lodi provided us, and we looked at the Lodi's results of our teachers now. So going from the nets now, looking at the levels of teaching innovation. Again, I'll show you these levels a little bit closer later on. But all of a sudden now, we're looking at what are the teachers doing in the classroom innovatively with our students. Well, that matches up with the fact that we're on this side of the Lodi level with the lack of student creativity and innovation. I'll let those wires here. And then we took a look at their personal computer use. Okay, so they're not really doing it in the classroom with our students. They have some skills, though, according to the personal computer use. That's not matching up with what's going on in the classroom. We do have some teachers out here that really know how to use a computer. But again, it's not happening in the classroom. So then we looked at the other thing, it's current instructional practices. This is looking at instructional practices, not necessarily about the technology now. And we said, oh, hold on. They're doing some cool stuff with student-centered learning. They have the skills themselves, but we're still not seeing it with the innovation of the teaching practices. They're still kind of leaning on different things that maybe don't push our students to think outside the box, problem solve, PBL, that type of stuff. So then we kind of looked back and said, why? And it basically came down to we didn't have reliable access for our teachers. We have the Lenovo's from CFF, we got rid of those. We have these old Dell laptops that are 6 years old. It takes 15 minutes to log onto the network sometimes for teachers. The batteries die on them. So there's no way a teacher is going to use that stuff unless they're in a specific area like our tech ed department or art department that had a lot of access and reliable access. So this just really yelled at us that we needed to create that access and make it easy. We actually were looking at the MacBook Airs. Actually, there's a student that still yells at me in the hallway when I carry this. You have a MacBook Air. Actually, we're selling this right now. It's sad because I love this thing, but I really love my Chromebook too as well. But he'll say, oh, you got one? I go, you know what I'm going to do with this, Tyler? I'm going to get on the web and go to Chrome. That's what I do on this thing. I don't do anything else on this thing but get to the web. If I need to edit a picture, I go to pixlr.com. Edit a picture a lot faster than if I could open up iPhoto and edit it there. So again, if I need to do a video, do a little editing, I can do YouTube editor, WeVideo. There's all these things on the web that are plenty robust for what I need to do, and subsequently, I think, for what our students need. That does not mean we don't have specialized equipment. You might be on a tour today that you can go to our art room and they have those big iMacs. Because they're using serious software that a Chromebook's not able to do yet. 5 more years from now, that stuff will be all web-based and you could probably do it on something. Microsoft just kind of released their own Chromebook just recently with Windows Surface 8, I think. They're trying to make it a free operating system that they can give out to as well. So they know they need to get there. Macintosh, they changed their iMovie. If you use iMovie, their new version sucks. The reason why is because they had to change it to work on the web. They were established in the 70s. Their code works for devices that are local. Google was made to work on the web. Their programming works on the web, so we don't have to fight that all the time.
What's neat about that is, and you should have those high-end workstations in your art classroom or in your engineering and design class. That ties back to this idea of platform agnostic. make decisions on equipment based on the educational process and what needs to be implemented to support the instruction as it evolves in the classroom. If you have a digital arts class, you know what? Chromebook is the wrong device. Doesn't mean that your Google platform for productivity is the wrong option. That's glorious for everything, but you need those pieces, and that's why I preach about platform agnostic so much.
Again, I'll show you where these sites are, but it's right off of the presentation. This is actually the PD that our teachers went through. They went through like a video ranking to understand what Lodi was. You did the typical videos, and they had to fill out a form of who they thought, from their paradigm, what digital NIST was. And the funny thing is one of these videos, this guy uses the interactive whiteboard, he uses active votes, and it's all techy, but the teacher's using the technology. So all the teachers right away ranked that as the highest video of digital agency. Again, trying to break down their paradigm of what effective teaching innovation is, not technology integration is. So then the last video, I'm not going to show you, but it's really neat. It's a kindergarten classroom. It's all project-based. The technology is embedded. It's seamless. You don't even notice it's there. And actually, the teacher's rank is lower because there's not much technology use, but it's teaching innovative, authentic learning. So the teachers kind of go through that rating system. This is free for you to use and copy. Again, it's not my stuff. I stole it from Lodi and then just Wilsonized it for us. Once they go through that kind of pre-understanding, they went through the Lodi framework and understand what the frameworks are. So again, I can have deeper conversations. Our principals, I'm helping them understand this too as well, so that they can go into a classroom and say, the teacher says, look, I made a screencast, principal, look how awesome it is. My kids can rewind me teaching. How's that any different? Okay, they can pause it and rewind it. That's really the only little improvement to it. But how about your kids making a screencast on the content? You just manage that, give them a rubric to establish and make it collaborative. And now you're really implementing really organizational type stuff. So the HEAP framework, this is all in line with PDE's effectiveness model, the next standard, all that type of stuff. So we have the harder thinking look force. One hard thing I wish they would have done is number them. Because as soon as you see number 1, you think I'm bad, number 6, I'm good. It doesn't matter. You should not just be at number 3 all the time as a teacher. Sometimes you gotta just have the kids take notes. They're gonna have to take notes sometimes, all right? But at the same time, they should be down to number 5, where they're learning and questioning at the analyzing level. We all know that. Engage with look for, students report what they've learned. Again, maybe they just need to know that. They need to know some basic knowledge. Or are they collaborating to define the task, the process, and with a solution of collaboration extends beyond the classroom. That is difficult to do every day. You can't. You can't do that as a teacher. But you should be doing it at some point throughout the lessons. So I asked the teacher, hey, I see you here during that activity. Is that where you see yourself? No, I thought I was here. And that's where our instructional conversation happens then. But why did I give them a 4 and they gave themselves a 5? But why did they give themselves a 3 and I thought it was a 4? Because I'm only seeing a little snippet. And maybe there was something else that led up to that too. Authentic connections, is it missing or too vague? The typical, okay, we're going to learn completing the square today, students. What the heck's completing a square? I don't know, you just got to learn how to do it, because as a math teacher, I don't even know when it's used. Okay? That's the typical answer, just do it because we have to do it type stuff. Or is it down to the learning experience provides real-world relevance and opportunity for students to apply the learning to real-world situations? Again, difficult to do all the time. But you're not an island anymore. We have Google+, you have Twitter. Hopefully we can have our teachers start to work together through that Google Summit in August, that we can start to provide these things. You don't have to come up with it by yourself. And then finally, the technology look forward. And this is really, is it the teacher using it, or is the students using it? And now with the access, I expect this to happen more at Wilson. Where before, that's all we had. I didn't want to wait 15 minutes for the laptop to turn on and then die. Okay? So again, that's the HEAP model. So that's the output from the students. That's why it's called HEAP. You increase the HEAP in the classroom. Then the Lodi part, the levels of teaching innovation, this is the teacher input. I'm not going to read through all this stuff. I'm just going to go down to the flow chart. But basically, the flow chart kind of summarizes all this stuff again. Lodi non-use. Maybe you don't use any technology and it's not standards-based. We just need to work on social skills and it's not part of my standards. That's fine. That's where your instructional target was. Did you meet it? Perfect. let's move on to something else we need to fix. But is promote personal aligned standards? Hopefully there is. Is there, another question, is there higher order thinking skills? If there isn't higher order thinking skills, maybe they just need to know the math facts, okay, or what have you. How's the digital environment resources being used? The resources are not being used by the teacher to enhance lecture, or maybe the resources are being used for students to gain information. Maybe that's going to that website that practices their math facts or something like that. Then we can say that, okay, if that's true, the higher order thinking skills is present. Is the learning experience student-centered and real-world applied? No? Well, then you're level 3. The products emphasize complex thinking skills and problem solving, but it has to be student-centered to move on. Okay, is there a collaboration outside the classroom? If there isn't, then you're going to be at level 4, and again, that's fine. I'm not saying it's worse to not be at a different level than another one. Level 4 versus 4A versus 4B basically talks about how comfortable a teacher is with using the technology in the classroom. And then if there's collaboration outside the classroom, the students, basically they're saying, does the student have technology available at their fingertips to get to any question or problem they need to solve? If so, then you can be at level 6. If not, then you're at level 5. This again allows me to have more conversations with my teachers about instruction. So after they've understood the framework, we had some activities and they did some scenarios about manatees, and then they understood the framework and applied, and then we got some feedback whether they got, whether they understood the loading framework. And they had another kind of homework assignment there too, again, to apply the framework. And then I kind of finish up the kind of talk. We did start off with the nets because they understood what that is, 21st century skills, just information. But the really one that I like the best to help simplify that, maybe not for discussion about instruction, but maybe for them to reflect on where am I with this activity, is the SAMR model. Most people are familiar with the SAMR model, where we want them to teach above that line. That dotted line there, we want them to teach above that line. Substitution, we have a chemistry teacher, Gay Wentz has been teaching probably 25 years. Unbelievable teacher, very technophobic, but she's not afraid to try. We worked together, built a Google site. She took her handwritten notes, we scanned them in, and now they're on our Google sites. And she thinks she is better than sliced bread. All right, and that's fine. That's just where she is in her loading levels. And now her kids have access to what she wants them to understand, no matter where they are. And she uploads those, she scans them in, emails herself, puts them right into her Google Drive folder, and bam, they end up right on her site. And she's so excited because she doesn't have to do anything. She's had to scan it in and upload it to her Google Drive, and bam, it's there. So she's working at the substitution level right there. Okay? Augmentation might be taking those notes and making them digital into Google Drive, so the kids can actually open the notes themselves, take notes, add comments, maybe collaboratively. So now the tech tool is actually augmenting that a little bit. The kids can actually do something with those notes. I'm just going to stick with my friend Ms. Wenzel the whole way through here. Modification, okay. Now what can we do besides letting them take notes on their computer? Let's have them collaborate to take notes and have me be able to get on those notes and add comments back to them. Or maybe it's an essay and I can have peer editing real quickly. Share this document with them, they can write on it, get it back to you, get your feedback and change it. So now you're really augmenting what you could have done traditionally. Could I have done that traditionally with paper and pencil? Yeah, you could use a lot of sticky notes and a lot of paper, and kids' hands be hurting them a lot from writing so much. Redefinitions, how can we redefine them? Well, maybe we bring in an expert that day through a Google Hangout to talk about those notes or that content you need to go over. And maybe you're sharing those notes with that expert and they can ask them questions in like a back channel or something like that through a Google Hangout. So that kind of redefines that simple activity of taking notes. So that really simplifies things for my teachers. The loading is kind of overwhelming to them, but after we go through a couple times of me coaching and working with them, they get a lot more comfortable with the loading. But the SAMR is an easy way for them to say, okay, that's where that activity is. There is no specific definition to go from one to the other. You could argue, is that really modification or is that really augmentation? That's good. That's the instructional conversations I want to hear from my teachers because they're reflecting on those practices there. And project-based learning also regardless. inquiry-based learning. So that's kind of how we set our teachers up for having the access now. With the inquiry training from asset training and the loading, it's really helped our students. And there's that number that Rich referenced earlier in the slide too as well.
There's 90% of the world's data was created in the previous 2 years. So throughout human history, before the last 2 years, it's only 10% of the world's data. It's a staggering fact, and it's empowering, it's frightening, it's a lot of things, but whether we like it or not, that's what we have to get kids ready for. That's what we're sending them to, and how to access that information, how to use it, how to leverage it for their careers, life, happiness, whatever it may be.
All right, I just want to then show you from that link, the Wilson SD one-to-one Action Committee. That'll take you to our website of one-to-one trainings and stuff like that. On the link on the left, there's that Lodi stuff that I talked about. I was talking to Rich, I think, but just talking about where, if you want to look at it from a technology perspective, of what we had to do to get our teachers ready. And believe me, they're all not there. You know, some are further along than others. But I really think they ought to have to understand the web and what a web application means, and the Chrome browser, how to make a bookmark, how can I sync my stuff so no matter what device, all my stuff is there. So really understanding what's involved in that Chrome web browser. Teachers are like, oh my God, this is awesome, you know, because they're not clicking 17 times to get to their websites. They can get there automatically. You know, extensions, like how can I, you know, take a screenshot of my screen? Well, I can use this extension here, drag, drop, and bam, I took a picture of my screen. I can bring that into a presentation within a couple clicks. Sorry, that's one. One more time. So things like that, the Chrome web browser, and then Google Drive, because Google Drive is their workflow. We want to make sure they're very comfortable with Google Drive, you know, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, Google Presentation, Google Forms is real powerful for formative assessment. Really making sure they're fine there. I have to remove this link because now there's rid of them. So really those two, and then Google Sites we mix in there so they could get that out to students. More importantly, students would make these portfolios, produce their own learning, or create their own learning, and then something like Google Plus and Twitter to start to develop their personal learning network so they don't have to do all this stuff themselves. So that was kind of like our model we followed with our PD sessions on the 11th and 12th. And then the rest of the way was really what does these teachers need? So we grouped them differently, got subs for them, working through, and this was just talking about the pilot getting ready for January 31st. We took 450 phone books in 9th graders' hands. So the rest of the way after the 11th and 12th session was 2 full days of Rich Becker, myself, Lynn Hill, and Tom Murray, all Google people, you know, different districts, but Google know a lot about Google and helped us out there in training our staff. And like I took the low flyers, Rich had the high flyers, so we kind of met them on their level too. And then afterwards we got them together with high flyers and low flyers, so low flyers would really benefit what those high flyers are doing too as well. That's kind of where we went and where we are. Our plan then from now, we put a proposal to the board to get 3 more of me in this district, which I'm so happy, hopefully it goes through. 1 at the high, and probably will end up being 2 at the high school, because we're going 1-to-1 next year starting September 9 to 12, and then 1 at the middle school / elementary school. I would kind of oversee all of them as well as work at all different levels. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully that goes through. That's our plan. And we also have some professional development for the rest of this year with our teachers to kind of continue this model. But we still have to bring all those rest of those teachers up on board. They've been getting some of this, but not quite as intense as our 9th grade teachers have, because obviously the access just came last month to them. We done?
So what's next? So you first mentioned what they did here. Obviously, a great PD model to follow. Talk to Chris about it and what they've done. And we're doing, we'll talk about the rest of the PD in a minute. Let's take a look at this next screen. So we keep talking about this readiness, right?
We just have
Yeah, we'll talk about keep talking about this readiness. Keep asking yourself, what are we doing in our district to get kids ready for what their future is going to be? There was a great blog not too long ago from Tom Whitney. He wrote this idea about, you know what?
When math teachers taught 1 to 31 odd back in the 2000s and the 90s, that was really great instruction for what those outcomes were and what we were getting kids ready for. And that's really good instruction for testing. Like Chris was saying, how it's hard to make that decision. We have to really have an honest conversation in education about, are we providing education that's really good for what's coming at them? Or are we going to let the test continue to decide what we do? I refuse to do that. I won't do it. I won't let the test decide what instruction looks like. We worked with Grant Wiggins an awful lot last year, and Grant has this great insight that don't use testing as an excuse for poor instruction. Because good instruction, readiness, inquiry, the higher level Bloom's things, access, inquiry leads to opportunity. If you get kids doing great things, the tests take care of themselves. And there's lots to be said there.
Let's just open up. We got 20 minutes.
Yeah, let's open it up. We're not going to show this. We can look at this later. But I have a couple more tips for you to take away and some things that you may want to use with teachers or in your district. But we'd really like to open this up and have a conversation asking you about what you still have questions on, ideas, anything else. Yeah.
I'll start with that.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that we're facing right now, we're looking more hard at Chromebooks. It's the browser issues. But things don't work in Chrome, they work in IE, they don't work right in IE, you have to use Firefox. Standardized testing, CDPs, BSSAs, these things don't work in Chrome. How are you addressing that?
Yeah, so a lot of things happening here, right? The Microsoft world was locked at Internet Explorer for a long time. Everybody knows that. Even over the last year, Chrome browser has become much more effective. It's built on HTML5. It's built on modern construction like WebGL and some of these more advanced protocols that are less security risks than something like Java. Chromebooks don't run Java. There's a very specific reason why they don't run Java. The world's moving away from Java because of the security risks. So it's absolutely, we're in the middle of a revolution from local computing was all we did to now the cloud. The DRC, the testing is coming along. They're supposed to have a Chrome piece. I know map testing was a big deal for us. Map testing now works on Chrome as of 3 months ago or something like that. When I first heard of it. It's coming along. It's coming along. DRC is very aware, PDE is very aware of what's happening with Chromebooks, and they're getting there. Now,
they made a promise, which
Promise.
take that for what it is
Yeah.
worth. By the end of this summer, they'll have a solution for web-based testing. So I would not bet a dime on that.
I wouldn't either. But you should
But it's
know,
moving so fast.
and Google's on that. So Google is pushing that too, because schools all, I mean, you go to New Jersey, the Chromebook penetration in New Jersey is everywhere because they're using Spark assessments, and actually Chrome works better on the Spark assessments than other browsers. So Chromebooks are everywhere. They need it again, right? I'm not gonna, we know about the lag in PA. It's coming, we have promises from them, we don't know if they're true, but you can figure by testing season 2015, they've said it'll be there. Let's hope.
I'm just curious how you're managing that in your schools.
Well, we still have our old devices
Yeah.
still, so we're kind of holding on to those to see, so we're not, putting our chips on the Chromebooks that are not working. So we still have those devices available to us. As to go to the teacher end of things, like, oh, I love this simulation, it's Java, it doesn't work on the Chromebook. I always push back, well, have the kids make the simulation, there's plenty of stuff online.
Yeah.
And actually today, if you get to see Joe Melagrana, he just sent me an email last week. I knew this was going to happen, the FET, I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah.
with the physics stuff.
HTML5,
They
yeah.
moved everything almost to HTML5, but the one thing he wanted to use for his lesson was
No Java.
didn't work. And I said, all right, let's search. So we searched and dug. So we turned it into the kids are making the simulation using another tool. And he said it turned out better. So I was a math teacher. I loved using NCTM stuff, the illuminations that didn't work on the Chromebook so well. It's getting better too because they're moving there. So again, you have to come up with, like GeoGebra is awesome in the math classroom. So there are solutions. I mean, the internet is so massive and things are happening so quickly. I've yet to have a teacher say, this doesn't work, find the solution. I've always had the luck to find the solution for what they want. It might not have been exactly what they wanted. So it's definitely been a learning curve for our teachers. But every day, like Clear from Michigan State University is a bunch of awesome language tools. Like one of our teachers will be using it today actually is I'm a language teacher. I can prompt the kid, they can see my face, I can talk to them. As soon as I'm done talking, the computer records their voice and it's a conversation. right back and forth. It records that all into an audio Dropbox, and then I can evaluate it right there for my students. That did not work on the Chrome browser 4 months ago, and my world language teachers were really mad at me because we're going Chrome, and they love those tools, and now they work, and I'm like, yeah! Thank you, Google. Actually, thank you, MSU, because they recoded all their stuff to work. So like I said, it's a workaround sometimes.
It's not a Google move to the cloud, it's a global phenomenon.
HTML5 is
That's what's taking over. Who else? Go ahead.
I have a question going back to the whole experience here, and you talked about access and the keynote. What did it take to overcome the whole idea of, for example, in school, teacher compliance? So you go apparently have teachers access.
Twitter's open, Facebook's open, YouTube's open, Pandora's closed.
What did you go through to change minds of what's
I tell you what, we had our previous tech director, Beth Boucher, she came into the role and she was definitely, what do you guys need to help this move along? And it was her asking, I think me, and then me kind of relaying, hey, our tech department is a lot more different in the way they're approaching things here. Let's leverage this and basically realize that it's here. We're not going to stop at the cell phone idea. George Fiore started talking about it, how it kind of was a huge deal. Our teachers are up and on, I can't believe you're letting them have cell phones, blah, 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 blah. And now you don't hear a thing about it. So I think it's just one of those things that once you have the bandwidth to allow that to happen, you obviously have to make sure the infrastructure's there. But it is a tough conversation. It's paradigm shifts. Experiences such as this help shift paradigms. I'm always willing to talk to any tech director, any assistant superintendent. I know Rich talked with our superintendent. I throw up my hands after Rich got off the phone with our superintendent. He's like, he's right. I go, what do you mean he's right? I've been saying that for 3 years. So sometimes it just needs it from someone else's perspective.
You can't be a prophet in your own land, we know this.
I saw one of your questions was how do you design curriculum to technology? So we have a schools model, and teachers are very tightly bound to this lesson plan format. And I have found that as they write those lesson plans, they don't write the technology through the plan. For whatever reason, they'll write and watch it from streaming but not the actual work that the students are doing with technology. So I was curious how you work on your curriculum to make this actually written down as part of the obvious curriculum.
Right. And that speaks to George talking with asset. He brought in asset inquiry separate from what I was trying to do, and it was kind of nice because I was invited to the inquiry training for a cohort of 30 high school teachers, and it was like a 3-day session before school started 2 years ago, I think it was. We took 30 of pretty solid teachers and helped them change their instruction for the inquiry. And that inquiry then allowed me to also talk about the technology throughout that whole PD. I interrupt the presenter all the time, but she appreciated it because she didn't have that skill set either. But making that cohort of 30 teachers, changing their paradigm on what instruction would look like, and now they were out in the building in their different departments doing things differently. The biggest pushback you'll get is from those high flyer kids. They already know how to play school, and they hate that. They're like, what are you doing? I know how to get my A's. Stop. I don't want to do this. Just tell me. And I'll spit it back to you and we'll move on. And now we had a second cohort that started the next year of 30 teachers in inquiry training, again, to help them understand that, we need to have the students work. Inquiry-based.
We've done a really poor job in recent years taking the art out of the classroom, taking the art out of the teacher's hands. We really have to stop doing that, right? We have to say, what are the outcomes? Provide that opportunity. I said all the time, ready to give kids the autonomy to display proficiency or mastery with choice, right? This can, let's get to, one single outcome. I'll tell you what the outcome is. You do this, you get an A. It's a prior era of thinking, right? You have to say, I need you to be proficient in these standards. Yes, there are standards. Standards are good. I want high standards. You choose how you display that proficiency or mastery. We have to get that back in the teacher's hands and let that art teacher take place again.
How have you supported teachers, digital presence? I'm assuming the devices go home. And how do you use the learning management system, websites, or is it just
the whole.
We actually had a conversation, we were planning that 11th two-day event of really getting into Google Apps. He's like, what about for Leonard Learning? What do you use? What do you use? And then George and I were like, we have Moodle, we have Google Apps, we have Google Sites, we have School Wires, we have Schoolology teachers are using, and we really feel like let the teacher decide. Again, back to the autonomy, is like we provide them, and if they want to learn Moodle, I have an online course to help them learn how to use Moodle. I'll go in and help them develop it according to the INACOL standards for good online courses. They want to use Google Sites, fine with me. Really, we want to leave it up to the teacher to decide that this is what we want. We stayed away from offering Moodle or blended learning during that professional development, so we felt like let them discover what they need. Now, I had a teacher come up to me like, how can I make, this? And I'm like, that's a perfect solution that Moodle can fill. And now I can give them the Moodle. Do you know what I mean? So I'm really waiting to prescribe, just like I would a student. I really feel our jobs as leaders is just like the classroom. It's no different from the classroom. It's just a lot harder to deal with these kids than the real ones. Sometimes. And sometimes a lot more. That help?
Absolutely.
We'll ask, just like your kids are. We'll ask.
How many of you are already a Google Apps for Education district? You have Google Apps turned on for your district? I have some more than half. Cool. How many of you feel like your teachers are really good at it? Awesome. More than half again. Or none. Let me show you. So I know we're coming to an end here, but I'd like to give some takeaways you can take back and possibly use for teachers. Obviously, we've done a ton of PD. The Google EDU team here in Wilson, we're doing it all over the country, but maybe you just need some takeaways to give to your teachers for right now. There's some of these really great. So, there's the new Google EDU site, google.com/edu. Did Stephen talk about this site too? So if you go to google.com/edu, there's the training page. And if you came here, we've restructured, so the advisory committee is restructured, actually we've restructured the way Google certified trainers get to be trainers and the teachers get to be teachers. And now there's a Google Educator, which I find much more relevant to our teachers. And maybe it's a good professional development channel. On the Learning Center, if you scroll down to the certification area, actually, you'll see that there's the getting certified, the exams, start getting the basics. Go down a little bit more. See, this has become a Google Educator. It used to be 6 exams. About 2 of these exams had nothing to do with education, and then you put in your defense to become a trainer, and that's the pain I went through years ago. Now, there's 5 exams, 4 base, and 1 the teachers get to choose. They're $15 each. And if your teachers complete that $75 process, they become a Google Educator. So we're doing boot camps for these kind of things, but if you have some real ringers, maybe they want to do it on their own. Or maybe you have 1 ringer that wants to help another 5 become this way. They're great, right? Good overview, good readiness, they get a certificate saying that they're Google certified and so on. That's still money though, still $75. If you want something completely free, will you go to g.co? G.co/edu courses, EDU courses. And then maybe just click on, there's about 5 or 6 of these open MOOCs, free online courses. Click on maybe Drive. So last summer we wrote some of these. I actually wrote the Drive one. Teachers can come here, educators, principals, anyone in your district can come to this site, pick any of those tools at the top. There's a series of 5 units, which 4 lessons or so in each one. The 4 lessons have a video for each one. There's a suggested activity for the classroom aligned to net standards. The videos are 1 to 2 minutes. It's a broad overview of the features that a lot of teachers don't even know exist. They get to the very end of that course, and there's an assessment with about 30 or 40 questions. If they hit 80% proficient, there's a certificate pops up that says, congratulations, Rich Kuiper, you completed the Google Drive for Educators course. They can print it, they can take a screenshot like Chris was sharing, and now they have an artifact for their end of the year evaluation, probably Danielson for most people in this room. It's free. I wrote it. If you want the answers, call me.
They're wrong. He gave them to me. They're all wrong.
It's at Kuiper's fault.
Is it Chrome Ninja that one?
Oh yeah, ninjaprogram.com is one for students, so where students can kind of go through this process where they can kind of get a Google certification. There's no Google student certification, and it doesn't look like there's going to be one anytime soon for a lot of reasons. But there are some independents out there that have built things. This is a free program worth looking at, where students can kind of go through like karate color belts of achievement through the Google Apps program. So maybe your computer teacher could be interested in something like that.
Yeah, our student tech team is looking at using this to help their students learn this. We have a professional development day for our 9th grade students run by our student tech teams and iSTEM students on the 28th, and they're going to leverage some stuff out of the Ninja program.
Do we know when that's another session at 12 or is that?
No, it's lunch.
Oh, so we have public, is it in here?
Yes.
Great. So let's finish up with some questions and some, or I didn't know if we had to stop and let people go where they need to be next. So, what other questions do you have about either what Wilson and Chris have done so successfully here, what the Google trainers and the whole extended Google family of education is doing? Anything we can help with? Yeah, go ahead.
This question is for Chris. With the rollout here, and what have the expectations been in terms of implementation? Have you taken them to the Lodi levels and said, I expect everyone to be here, and here's what it looks like?
Just like in a classroom, maybe I have a teacher at level 1. I expect them to try to move to level 2. I have a teacher at level 4. I expect them to move to level 5. We'll take that test every year, that survey, to kind of gauge where they are. Really, this comes down to them knowing that that's the expectations from the principals to try. Like we talked in our keynote, we expect excellence by trying. We don't expect perfection. You'll see some teachers today that will struggle, and that's fine. Because you're not seeing our best, we send them out to our 9th grade teachers, and they're not all of our best teachers with technology you're going to see today. So some teachers might struggle today. George is having trouble with that because he's a personality type, wants to control everything, make sure everything's perfect. I'm like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. That's what we have to keep telling our teachers. There's a lot of pressure on our teachers at Wilson, and maybe too much in my opinion sometimes. And they're feeling the pressure from this. Peer pressure, positive peer pressure. I have a teacher who teaches Spanish. She emailed me the other day, this is great. I can't believe I can do this stuff myself. And it's because she's right next to another Spanish teacher that's tech savvy, and he's showing her stuff. And it's like growing organically, like we talked about, without me having to spend a super amount of time with that teacher, teaching them how to right click all the time.
But there's that's great. And so there's no expectation that everyone has to do some sort of collaboration, or everyone has to use.
Not right now. We're in the pilot phase, sort of. I don't think that'll change too much in the next year. What I've seen throughout our pilots in district, I've been in this role 6 years, it takes about a good full year to teachers get, once they have the technology in the classroom, to feel comfortable to start branching out. So I think if we give those teachers a year, then those expectations can be raised a lot higher. And the nice thing about the Google ecosystem, once you learn one tool, the other tool is so much easier to learn. And all of a sudden, like, this isn't too bad. I can just play with this stuff instead of being scared of it anymore. So it's definitely that little fire started, and it's beginning to grow. I'd like to see this same symposium next year and doing our classroom tours of those teachers that had it for a year. It'll be interesting because we've seen it happen throughout our district. It'll be neat to see a building move that whole way.
How do you see the e-portfolios involvement from your freshman up through their senior year?
Well, we implemented e-portfolios sort of successfully, and mainly because of the access again a couple years ago through our graduation project and our academies that George spoke to. So as a student in the STEM Academy, he has to create an e-portfolio throughout his career here at Wilson. And then during his capstone project, he has to present his portfolio along with his capstone. That met, lukewarm success because students didn't have access to get to their e-portfolios when they were doing the work. So hopefully that takes off a little bit better. E-portfolios in general are really specific to the teacher if they want to use them in the classroom. So I might have one German teacher who loves using e-portfolios, and then no one else in that whole building doesn't like using e-portfolios. So we really haven't pushed that. It's just, again, another tool the teacher can use. So I see those better at the elementary school level, but again, we don't have the access quite there yet to make it all electronic.
I have a couple of questions, because I'm not real familiar with the Chromebooks, except that we're looking at it. Is printing an issue at all?
Ryan Fitterling, our network administrator, actually taught him in our Cisco Networking Academy program when I was a teacher, and he hacked into our email system during my class a couple times and told me about it. He was totally like, yeah, look, I found a backdoor, really nice guy, smart kid, not a kid anymore. But he figured out how to make our Chromebooks work with our network all by himself and made it work, and I can get you in touch with him. You can use Google Cloud Print. You need to have network printers to make that work too as well. So there is a solution there. It just might take some finagling to get there, and that's one of those things probably by this time next year, not that big an issue as long as your printers are networked.
You see a lot of schools going to the managed printing solutions because it saves costs anyway, so they're networked, and that's a pretty easy solution.
And also just reach out for professional development for parents.
That's one of the areas that I feel that we definitely need to grow in, and that's one of the big things I want to push during that Google Summit. We've had some parents' nights. I really want to push through our student tech team once that gets up and running, because they're just in their infancy too as well. That's their job. That's their job to have some light things for students and parents too as well, to inform that. I always say I'm only one person, I can't do it all, and it's nice to see other people are really moving this way too as well. It's about time.
Go ahead.
The whole idea of getting kids to do more collaboration is awesome. One of the things that in education is forever, we're not learning collaboration. You start really throughout the day. We collaborate videos after school. So how is that, you talked about that a little bit, how is that?
Yeah, like I said with that Spanish teacher, she's using a lesson today that our other Spanish teacher created. So again, now that she feels secure that it'll work in her classroom, she's not afraid to try anymore. So she doesn't know how to develop it. She has a relationship. So the other teacher's like, hey, I already developed this. I'm teaching Spanish too, so you just use it. So actually 3 Spanish teachers are using the same exact lesson today that one of them created, all through Google. Our math teachers use Google Drive exclusively to house all their worksheets and projects all in Google Drive and shared amongst all the geometry teachers. They all work out of the same folder for their lesson plan. So again, that's almost grown organically, again, because we kind of go back to that idea you brought up through our conversation is they saw the value there. If you know math teachers, they think they know all the correct answers. I'm looking at Jason over there. And you can't tell them what they need to know. But all of a sudden they saw the value there, and I came down like, oh, look at you guys. You're all using Google Docs. Imagine that. Didn't I tell you that last year? So it'll come around once they see that value. But if they don't see that value, it doesn't surrender.
It looks like we're set up for food, so if you have a final question, or if you want to have some individual questions.
Are your students using Gmail?
Yes.
Are you teaching?
No. We have Microsoft Outlook, and I cannot wait to get rid of it. We are hopefully moving there, I'm going to say next year, but I doubt it. But we can just forward right to our school email.
I asked the problem we're having is our school solicitor told us that we have to keep everything local. Everything, all communication,
How do they argue about getting information from your ISP then, and send some email down to
That's
them?
what I said. So we have two apps. We have most of our apps are locked down because we don't have anything local. That's
Right. Do you use PowerSchool or IEP Writer or anything?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
We're in the cloud. Your solicitors, did they pick up on that one?
I guess that's
Good.
I just want to know how you guys dealt with the local storage for students. Like, do you have local storage?
We used to have Outlook email accounts for grades 9 to 12 years ago, and we were spending the same amount of money on them. So right away we moved them to email, and then we went I think it's K to 12, maybe it's just 3 to 12.
They're not local storage.
No, but in elementary school, they only can send students, I want to say, I'm not positive. I think they can only send.
That's a good point, actually. You have organization, and you know which you send.
That's why I told you.
Right. Sorry.
It sounds like that conversation I had 30 years ago.
I would challenge you to what we did plenty of times. I do all things. because they don't have technology they want to stay or when really nothing's moving. So it's a little bit of a, like a why they fight all the time, it's sort of local. The world's not
They're called organizational units, and Google Management Domain, you can even say a classroom is its own organization. And you can push out different apps or those organizations.
Is there anybody in the room having success at the elementary level? Because it seems like there was the last batch before the high school.
Yeah,
It seems
yeah.
like maybe we should start with the elementary.
Yeah, we thought about that too.
Is it very?
That's why I said, we have to hold it. By the time those kids next year get, all the people in high school who are doing this now, the kids are gonna come there already knowing. You're not gonna have to take some file name. You're already gonna know that. So,
I was thinking, we discussed this week, maybe I'll start at second grade, and then the third grade I'll get another set, and just move it that way.
We always talk about that. We wish we've done it, starting kindergarten and moved that way up, but the urgency that George brought to our building and the principal was very training model and said, I'm not waiting. No, I'm not waiting to be close and close and close. And we had the technology here, the CFS here, we had a lot of things in place, the infrastructure was better, so it just made more sense for us. But if I had my dream school, kindergarten, here you go, or kindergarten, fifth grade, here you go. Next year, middle school, next year, high school. We'll figure it out.
Do we? Be around all lunch. If you want to talk some more, come up, say hi.
Yeah, Rich and I, like I said, we're available to talk to whoever you need us to talk to, solicitors, superintendents, principals. We like to mix it up a little bit. So, let us know.